Good morning. Welcome to section 5.2, integer exponents and quotient rule. What we're going to be doing is we're going to be building on the exponent rules we had in the last section. Those are still going, we're still going to have them. We're just going to be adding more to them. So in the first new rule, we have a to the 0 power is 1. This is saying anything raised to the 0 power is equal to 1. You can make this difficult, but it's not. If it's raised to the 0 power, it's 1, no matter what. Our second rule is a to the negative n is the same thing as 1 over a to the positive n. Now I'm going to explain to you real quick why those make sense. I know they seem weird. Let's look at this pattern right here. We know 2 to the first power is 2. 2 squared is 4. If you multiply it again by a 2, you get 8. 2 to the third power is 8. Let's look at this in reverse. If I go from here to here, I divide by 2, right? 8 divided by 2 is 4. And then if I divide by 2 again, I get 2. And then if I take 2 and divide that by 2, I get a 1. 2 to the 0 power is 1. Now let's keep going. Where these are going down 1 every time, I'm going to keep dividing by 2. If I divide this by 2 again, I get 1/2. And then if I divide by 2 again, I get 1/4. Well, right there, that 2 is 2 to the first power. So this becomes 1 over 2 to the first power. Here, the 4, that's 2 squared, right? So this is 1 over 2 squared. So we have the 1 over, and then our exponent becomes positive. That's why those make some sense. Okay? Now going on here we have a fraction. Notice that our bases are not the same, and we have negative exponents. Well, what happens is we take the one with a negative exponent in the bottom, and it moves up to the top and becomes a positive exponent. And the one in the top with a negative exponent goes down in the bottom. So basically, a negative exponent moves it to the other side of the fraction bar and makes it a positive exponent. Okay. If we have a fraction where the entire thing is raised to a negative exponent, we are allowed to take the reciprocal of what's inside and make it a positive exponent. Okay. Now for our final rule, we have a division here. And if you notice, this time we have the same base on the top and the bottom. We did not have this last time. When you have the same base on the top and the bottom, we can subtract those exponents. Now in the last section, we said that you couldn't have a repeated base, your parentheses had to be gone, and all of that stuff to be simplified. Now we add that you are not allowed to have a negative exponent remaining. Okay? Now what I've done, like last time, is I have this card here, and I have the same rules we had before, and I've added our new ones. So I'm going to simplify these as much as possible. You may remember that last time we talked about the importance of having parentheses when we're dealing with powers. And here on these two is another example of that. On both of these, I have a 0 exponent, so I'm likely dealing with property number 5 on both. In fact, I am. But it's a question of what difference the parentheses make. Remember, if you have trouble remembering, you can always use the parentheses on your calculator to figure it out. So let me enter it first with parentheses. Parentheses -10 raised to the 0 power, and that gives me a positive 1. Now if I enter it without the parentheses, it gives me a -1. Okay, this literally means the number -10 raised to the 0 power, and this is the number 10 raised to the 0 power and then made negative. Just like last time, I wish there were some y I could give you to make it easy to remember, but there's just not a y. Somebody came up with the rule, it's stuck. Let's look at this one. Okay, 0 to the 5th power divided by 5 to the 0 power. This is property number 5 again, because I have a 0 power down here. 5 to the 0 power is going to be 1. Parentheses matter most when you have a negative involved. 5 to the 0 power is 1. But what is 0 to the 5th power? Well, that's 0 times 0 times 0 times 0 does 0. 0 times itself 5 times. Well, 0 times itself, however many times, is going to be 0. So I have 0 divided by 1. And you're allowed to have a 0 in the top. 0 divided by 1 is 0. Again, if you get mixed up about whether you're allowed to have the 0 on the top or in the bottom, use your calculator. It will tell you if there is an error.